They say war changes a man, but the truth is sometimes it's not the battlefield that breaks you. It's the home you leave behind. My name's Jake. I'm 42, and I've served 18 years in the Army for combat tours, one Purple Heart, and more nights spent under foreign skies than I care to count. I'd planned for my last deployment to be just that, last. I'd already sacrificed birthdays, anniversaries, and pieces of myself you can't stitch back together. But Erin, my wife of 17 years, looked me dead in the eyes over morning coffee and asked me to go back for one more tour. "It's for the pension," she said, stirring her creamer like nothing was out of place. "We'll be set for life." I stared at the woman I'd built my world around, trying to understand why someone who once begged me not to re-enlist was now pushing me back into the fire. And that's when I saw it, a flicker in her eyes I couldn't place, like a move already decided. I remember standing at the airport, the kind of place where you watch goodbyes unfold in every flavor, ugly crying, tight-lipped farewells, long hugs like people are clinging to a lifeline. Erin pulled me into her arms, her grip stiff but present, and said the words she thought I needed to hear. "I'll wait for you. Always." But the warmth I used to find in her touch felt off, like she was reciting lines from a script she hadn't rehearsed in years. Her eyes welled up, but no tears fell. Her mascara didn't run. Her breath didn't hitch. It was all there, the performance of heartbreak, but none of the soul. When she kissed me, it was soft, short, almost impatient. Like a checkbox ticked, not a moment savored. And that's when it hit me, right there at gate C-17. My wife wasn't saying goodbye to me, she was saying goodbye to the idea of me. The fool who never questioned anything. As I walked toward my terminal, boots heavy, not from the gear slung over my shoulder, but from the unease settling deep in my gut, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had already changed back home. I should have trusted my instincts then. I should have turned around and asked her why she really wanted me gone. But I didn't. Because even men who've seen the worst of war still believe the people they love can't be part of the enemy. And maybe that's how they get you. Looking back now, I see it clear as day. Erin didn't send me to war for the money. She sent me so she could breathe without me. The thing about deployments is that, at first, they lull you into this false sense of comfort, like maybe this time, the distance won't stretch so far it snaps something inside you. My first few months in Iraq were brutal, but the messages from Erin made it bearable. She emailed every morning like clockwork, short little notes with blurry snapshots of our golden retriever sprawled across the couch, selfies of her blowing kisses and my favorite hoodie, grocery lists, weather updates. Mundane nothings that somehow meant everything when you're 10,000 miles away. She even sent a care package filled with homemade peanut butter cookies, the same kind she used to bake when I got home from the base on Friday nights. For a while, it almost felt like she missed me, that familiar ache in the chest, the type that says you belong somewhere. But slowly, like a leak in a boat you don't notice until your feet are wet, something in her tone started to shift. The "I miss you so much" became "hope you're doing okay." The "I love you" turned into "take care of yourself." And then one night, under the flickering tent lights, I read the words that stopped my heart cold. "We'll need to talk when you get back. I just need space." Now here's the kicker. While Erin was busy typing out her emotional withdrawal from our marriage, she was also posting smiling photos of herself on social media like nothing in the world was wrong. Normally, I wouldn't check her feed more than once a week, not because I didn't care, but because I trusted her. But that changed when one of my squad mates, scrolling his phone during a lull, said with a laugh, "Yo, Jake, your wife's glowing in this pic. She got someone taking professional shots back home." My stomach dropped. I pulled up the post. There she was, hair done, makeup perfect, leaning against the hood of her car in a sundress I bought her for our 10th anniversary, and right there, nestled in the comments, was my younger brother Alex. His words weren't funny or casual like siblings usually toss around. No, his comment read, "You look incredible, as always. Miss our talks." With a little red heart. Not a thumbs up. Not a fire emoji. A heart. I stared at it so long I barely noticed my knuckles turning white from gripping the screen. I hadn't even told Alex I was deploying again. He never called to say goodbye. And now he's calling my wife incredible? I tried telling myself it was harmless, just per judgment, maybe a moment taken out of context. But the more I scrolled, the more the pieces refused to fit. He had commented on 3 more of her photos that month, always within minutes of her posting. One of them was her sitting on our back porch at sunset, a glass of wine in hand, the caption reading, "My favorite time of day." His response? "Mine too. Especially with you." I didn't even know what that meant. Were they texting behind my back? Meeting up? Was this just flirtation? or something deeper? And why in the hell did she suddenly want space after begging me to leave again? That night, lying on a thin cot with sand sticking to my skin and rage boiling just beneath the surface, I realized something terrifying. The enemy I feared most might not be across the ocean. It might be the two people I trusted more than anyone else in the world, quietly building something behind my back while I stood in uniform, fighting a war I no longer believed was worth leaving home for. If you'd told me an explosion on the side of a dirt road in northern Iraq would end up being the best thing that happened to me that year, I'd have laughed in your face and probably offered to buy you a drink. Because only a crazy man would say something like that with a straight face. But the truth is, that blast didn't just crack my shoulder, it cracked the illusion I'd been desperately trying to hold together for months. We were rolling through an open corridor just south of Al-Qayyara. Nothing new, nothing unusual, same heat, same haze, same anxious stillness that sat heavy on your chest like a warning you couldn't quite name. I was riding passenger in the second Humvee when the lead vehicle triggered the IED. The shockwave hit like a freight train, shoving steel and sand in every direction, and when the chaos settled, I realized I couldn't lift my left arm without pain ripping through my upper body like barbed wire. Lucky, they called it. Just a fracture. No shrapnel, no nerve damage. But I was done. Medevaced out. As I lay on a hospital cot in the green zone with a sling hugging my shoulder and morphine still fogging the edges of my vision, the idea started to take shape, slow and steady like a shadow creeping under a door. I had every reason to go home. Doctor's orders, no paperwork to delay it, full clearance. And yet, I didn't tell Erin. I could have reached out, said something like, "Hey babe, I'm coming home sooner than expected." But deep down, beneath the hurt and confusion and paranoia, something in my gut whispered, "Don't warn her. Not yet." If everything was innocent, if her and Alex were just close, if I was being paranoid from too many nights in the desert staring into my own thoughts, then what harm could a surprise do? But if there was something going on, if they were meeting behind my back while I bled into foreign soil, then showing up unannounced would give me something I'd never get over a phone, the truth. Unfiltered. Raw. The kind you can't spin with excuses when you're caught under the same roof you used to call home. I didn't sleep the entire flight. Not because of pain, though the ache in my shoulder throbbed like a metronome of regret, but because of the war inside my head. One minute I was picturing Erin running into my arms, mascara running, lips trembling, telling me how proud she was that I made it back alive. The next minute, I was rehearsing how I'd react if I walked into our bedroom and found her in bed with my damn brother. That's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. You don't just brace for heartbreak. You brace for two completely opposite realities to exist at once. Hope and horror. And when the plane wheels hit the tarmac back home, I looked out the window at the dark, quiet runway and realized I had no idea which one I was walking into. But I was going to find out. One way or another. There's something haunting about coming home in silence. No fanfare, no family hugs, no yellow ribbon on the porch, just the hollow echo of your own boots on cracked concrete at 2:03 in the morning. The taxi dropped me off a block from the house, more out of instinct than strategy, like some part of me already knew I didn't want the rumble of an engine giving away my arrival. As I walked up the driveway, the first thing I noticed was her car, right there where it always sat, clean, untouched, like it had been waiting for me. The porch light was off, which didn't bother me at first, until I glanced down the street and saw something that stopped me cold. My brother's truck, tucked away just far enough to not raise suspicion, but close enough that he could have walked the last few steps without breaking a sweat. My stomach twisted, and for a moment I stood there, paralyzed, convincing myself it could be anything. Maybe he'd stopped by to fix something. Maybe Erin wasn't feeling well and he was just helping out. Maybe I was still doped up from the meds and seeing ghosts where there were none. But I knew better. Soldiers know when something's wrong. We don't need alarms. We feel it in the air. I slipped my key into the lock like I was defusing a bomb, careful, slow, terrified of what might be ticking on the other side of the door. The house smelled the same, lavender and lemon, her favorite candle combo, but the silence was deafening, not peaceful, not the kind that welcomes you back, but the kind that warns you don't belong here anymore. My boots pattered across the hardwood like I was walking in someone else's house, and when I got to the stairs, I didn't breathe. Every step felt like the click of a landmine trigger. At the top, our bedroom door was half closed, not locked, not sealed, just ajar like a trap waiting to be sprung. I pushed it open with my good arm and stood there, frozen, as my entire world detonated without a sound. There they were, my wife and my brother, tangled together in the center of the bed I built with my bare hands, limbs intertwined like a scene ripped from some sick motel fantasy. The same comforter we picked out on our anniversary draped over nothing they had left to hide. Because when the soul breaks, it doesn't scream, it goes silent, like the space between gunfire, like the void left by someone who walks out and never looks back. My wife's arm was flung across his chest like she belonged there, her hair cascading over his shoulder, her breathing slow and unbothered, and my brother, my blood, had the kind of smirk a man wears when he knows he's gotten away with something dirty. My knees didn't buckle, not then. My heart didn't race. It just stopped. I faced death in deserts, watched good men bleed out in sandstorms, but nothing prepared me for the feeling of seeing the two people I trusted most turn our home into a crime scene without shame. My world didn't just break, it imploded. And in that quiet, standing in the wreckage of the life I left behind, I realized something colder than betrayal itself. They hadn't made a mistake. This was planned. And now they were sleeping soundly, completely unaware that I had come home early to bury them in the truth. The sound that snapped her awake wasn't my voice. It was the creak of the bedroom floor beneath my boots, that subtle shift in the air when presence enters a space you thought was locked down tight. Erin's eyes fluttered open slowly at first, then widened in a split-second jolt of recognition that would have been comical if it hadn't been soaked in filth. She gasped like an actress in a bad soap opera, clutched the blanket to her chest with forced shame, and scrambled off the bed in a tangle of limbs and guilt. "Jake, oh my God, it's not what it looks like," she blurted, her voice already rising in pitch, like if she talked fast enough, the truth might disappear before it burned the walls down. She yanked on a robe hanging from the closet door, tying it so violently it looked like she was trying to strangle her own betrayal. Meanwhile, my brother, my own flesh and blood, didn't even blink. He just lay there, shirtless and smug, with one arm propped behind his head, and that familiar smirk spread across his face like he'd been waiting for this confrontation the whole damn time. It wasn't just betrayal I saw in that moment, it was confidence. Arrogance. Like they thought I'd never find out. Like they thought I was too busy playing soldier to ever come home and uncover the truth they'd been hiding in my sheets. Erin's voice turned frantic, the same way she used to get when she misplaced her phone or double-booked a weekend, only this time. It wasn't forgetfulness she was scrambling to cover, it was premeditated sin. "Jake, listen to me," she said, her tone flipping like a broken radio station. "I didn't plan for this to happen, okay? I was lonely. You were gone again, and I didn't know how to handle it." She started pacing, hands flying, voice cracking in just the right places to seem rehearsed. "You left me here, Jake. Again. I begged you to stay, and you chose the army over me. Again. You're always a soldier. Never a husband." She flung that last line like a grenade, as if she expected it to land with finality, like a full stop that would make her cheating my fault. But what she didn't realize, what they both didn't realize, was that I wasn't there for a fight. I wasn't there to yell or cry or beg or plead. I'd seen men die with dignity, and I wasn't about to let them take mine. I didn't throw a punch, even though the rage in my chest was louder than artillery and sharper than any blade I'd ever been trained to carry. I just looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in 17 years, I saw a stranger wearing my wife's face. A stranger who would set a fire and call it warmth. A stranger who could lie with her mouth and her eyes open. I turned, walked out of the room that used to be mine, down the stairs that had once echoed with laughter and holiday mornings, and out into the night, where the air was cold but honest. And as the door clicked shut behind me, I realized something I hadn't dared to admit until that moment. Whatever love I thought we had, whatever trust one believed was sacred between blood and vow, had already died long before I stepped off that plane. They didn't kill it tonight. They just made sure I saw the body. The next morning, I checked into a dusty motel off the interstate, the kind of place where the vending machine hums louder than the guests and the front desk clerk doesn't ask questions if you pay in cash. I stared at the ceiling, fully dressed, boots still on, letting the fan whirl like a slow countdown to the version of myself I was about to become. This wasn't heartbreak. This was something colder, and for the first time in days, my military training kicked in, not in anger, but in strategy. I picked up the prepaid burner phone I'd bought on the way there and called an old buddy from my second deployment, Nick, who left the service and built a quiet career as a private investigator. The guy was a ghost with a camera. I didn't even have to explain everything. Just said, "I came home early and found them together," and he answered, "Give me 5 days." I gave him the names, the addresses, the timelines. And then I waited, pretending to sleep, pretending to eat, pretending to breathe like a man who hadn't just watched his world cheat on him in real time. The report came back in 6 days, less than a week, and when I opened the email, even though I thought I was prepared, the weight of the truth damn near knocked the air out of me. Nick had gathered everything. Photos of my brother's truck parked outside my house on weekday mornings, security cam footage from a gas station showing the two of them laughing as they filled up on coffee and smokes, phone records that painted a timeline not just of betrayal, but of premeditation. The worst part wasn't the physical proof of what they'd done while I was gone, it was the date stamps. Texts between Aaron and Alex that went back nearly 4 months before I shipped out. Back when she was still holding my hand at night and whispering, "I'll miss you," into my neck. One thread wrecked me more than the rest. It was a message from Aaron 2 weeks before I deployed, saying, he's gonna re-enlist. I convinced him last night. That buys us time. That single line shattered something sacred in me. Not just love, but belief. She looked me in the eyes, cried in my arms, and sent me off to war, not out of love, but convenience. There's something soul-rotting about realizing your enemy was never across the ocean. It was in your own bed, in your own bloodline, smiling at you while feeding you to the wolves. I stared at that screen until the words blurred, not from tears, but from fury so pure it numbed me. I closed the laptop slowly, breathed deep, and understood something I never had before. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about justice. I wasn't going to scream or post or beg her to explain. I wasn't going to warn her or let her clean up the mess before I struck. I was going to build my response the way I was trained to build everything in the Army, with patience, precision, and devastating efficiency. She played a long game. I was about to show her how that really looks when a soldier plays it better. There's a certain calm that comes after devastation, not the peaceful kind, but the eerie stillness right before the retaliation begins, the kind of silence that's not about surrender but calculation. 3 days after reading the report that proved my wife didn't just cheat, but strategically orchestrated my absence so she could do it freely, I sat in a polished, oak-scented office with my divorce attorney, a no-nonsense woman named Julia Finch who'd made a career destroying liars in family court like a surgeon with a scalpel. I laid out every detail. No kids, the house deeded in my name alone thanks to my VA loan benefits. No prenup because I was young and dumb when we married, and now, an airtight timeline of infidelity that included texts, photos, and an entire narrative documented like a military briefing. Julia's eyes gleamed with professional bloodlust as she flipped through the binder I handed her and said, "Jake, she's going to think this is a conversation when it's actually a verdict." That line hit me harder than any explosion I'd heard overseas. For the first time in weeks, I felt control coil back into my spine like a steel rod. I wasn't here to ask Aaron for closure. I was here to legally dismantle her. And the most dangerous part? She had no idea what was coming. I started sending her texts, friendly ones, each word dipped in venom masked as sweetness. "Thanks again for being strong while I was away," I wrote. "I don't know how you held things together with all that pressure." She responded with faux humility, "Little hearts, I just wanted to be there for you." And every time she replied, I imagined the look on her face when the court summons would be handed to her in public, in broad daylight, on a weekday she didn't see coming. I let her believe I was processing things, just trying to make sense of it all, as I said in one message. She offered to meet up and talk, and I agreed soon, I told her, when my head's a little clearer. Meanwhile, Julia was drafting the filing with the kind of precision most people reserve for airstrikes. She laid out everything: infidelity, fraud, emotional distress, and full asset retention on my part. She even advised me to stay calm, stay polite, and keep a digital trail of my behavior that painted me as the mature, stable, emotionally wounded spouse, which I didn't have to fake, because I was wounded, just not by her anymore. In the eyes of the law, image matters. And while Aaron was still parading around like the affair was a private sin we could talk through, I was setting the stage for a public reckoning she wouldn't walk away from with a dime or a shred of reputation intact. She thought the quiet was mercy. What she didn't realize was that my silence was the sound of aim. Every moment I pretended to be reasonable, to be kind, to be understanding, was another step closer to the legal ambush that would expose her not just as unfaithful, but as a liar, a manipulator, and a woman who weaponized a marriage to chase lust behind her husband's back. They sent me to war. Now I was bringing it home, and this time, I wasn't the one leaving in pieces. There's a certain art to revenge when it's served cold, and I made sure every part of mine was delivered with surgical precision, quiet, clean, and absolutely devastating. I had the divorce papers hand-delivered to Erin at her workplace on a Thursday morning at 10:12 a.m., just as her office floor was starting to buzz with mid-morning energy and coffee breath. I timed it that way on purpose. She worked at a real estate firm downtown, all glass walls and polished smiles, the kind of environment where appearances mattered more than ethics, where gossip moved faster than market trends. The process server walked in, crisp suit, leather folio in hand, asked for her by name in front of half her coworkers, and placed the envelope directly into her trembling hands. She must have known instantly, there's a weight to legal documents that feels different, like something's over before your mind can accept it. But I wasn't done. Within the next hour, I froze all joint accounts, rerouted our shared investment withdrawals to a protected solo portfolio, and removed my name from anything that could tether me to her financially. She hadn't just betrayed our marriage, she'd bet her comfort, her future, and her pride on the idea that I'd either be too broken to act or too dumb to fight back. She was wrong on both counts. I expected a response, but I wasn't prepared for the avalanche of screeching that came flooding into my voicemail like a tsunami of narcissism. 7 messages in 2 hours. The first one started with, "Are you serious right now?" And the last one ended in sobs so shrill my phone vibrated like it was trying to escape the room. She screamed that I had manipulated the narrative, that I was destroying her life without even giving her a chance to explain. But the line that stuck out, the one that made my jaw clench and my heart go steel, was when she yelled, "You manipulated me." I listened to that one 3 times, sitting on the edge of the motel bed I hadn't slept in since the truth shattered everything. Then I pressed record and calmly replied with the only words I needed to say. "You cheated first. You just used a different battlefield." And that was the moment I realized this war was already won, not because I broke her down, but because I refused to play the role of the broken man. I maneuvered like a soldier, thought like a strategist, and struck with the patience of someone who had waited long enough. I wasn't the villain she could spin in her head to justify what she'd done. I was the reckoning she never thought would show up at her door, in uniform or out. And while she sat at her desk, probably Googling what happens when you're served at work for infidelity in a no-fault divorce state, I was already closing the book on a chapter she thought she'd get to write alone. But not this time. This time, I was the author. And the final sentence belonged to me. Justice doesn't always roar. It sometimes arrives in whispers, delivered not by a gavel, but by watching someone who once had everything you gave them learn what it means to lose it all. The court hearing didn't take long, less than 20 minutes, in fact. My lawyer laid out the timeline, the photos, the messages, the hotel receipts, and the proof that Erin had been not just unfaithful, but deliberately deceptive, actively encouraging me to deploy so she could play house with my brother in peace. Because of the state we lived in and the overwhelming evidence of adultery, she was awarded nothing, no spousal support, no stake in the house, and not a dime of my military pension. Her share of our savings was slashed in half, and even that was frozen for weeks while the dust settled. I walked out of that courthouse with my head high, papers in hand, and the quiet kind of relief that doesn't make you smile, it just lets you breathe again for the first time in what feels like years. I didn't celebrate. I didn't toast. I just stood outside on the steps of that building, the wind hitting my face like a baptism, and thought, she gambled with loyalty and lost to a man who never bluffed. As for Alex, the golden boy she threw our marriage away for, he didn't last long. Turns out, being the guy with bedroom charm and a smirk doesn't mean much when your credit score is shot and your tools are borrowed. Erin lasted about a month before she realized he couldn't even cover a dinner bill, let alone build a life. From what I heard, they started fighting over money, over expectations, over the fantasy that crumbled as soon as the real world showed up with its ugly bills and no safety net. She dumped him like dead weight, just like I always suspected she would, once she saw that what he had to offer couldn't match what she lost. I didn't need to interfere. I didn't need to plot any further. She was already sinking, and Alex had no raft to offer. My revenge wasn't fire, it was frost. I found out through a mutual friend, a guy I used to work with back when I did contract jobs before my last tour, that Erin had moved into a cramped one-bedroom apartment in a sketchy part of town. She was working retail, folding jeans for teenagers and chasing hours just to make rent. The same woman who used to scoff at coupons and say things like, "I deserve the finer things," was now standing under fluorescent lights for $9 an hour, checking receipts and pretending not to cry when old neighbors walked in. That friend asked me if I felt satisfied, if knowing how far she'd fallen gave me peace. And I told him the truth. She gave up a man who would have died for her, for a guy who can't even pay for brake fluid.